Anytime you see high cost, bad service, that's an opportunity I'm looking for as a startup.
So where do you see that? High cost, bad service.
Okay, so the one that's the real big opportunity that I'm looking at now is government. That's where we get the worst service for the highest cost.
What's the number one thing that catches your eye about an entrepreneur as somebody who has seeded a number of very well-known companies?
Is the industry currently managed where the consumer is getting bad service at a high price? That's a big opportunity. I just sort of say, okay, big opportunity. And how the entrepreneur is approaching it is very important. Do they have some new technology to bring to bear, or is it just some washed up idea? And then you say, can they turn that into a business model? You know, as an entrepreneur, you need to put as much of your effort into designing your business model now as you did in designing the product or service. And so getting that business model right, and then when I finally meet with them, they've just got to have enthusiasm breaking out of their chest. And I usually ask them, like, why are you doing this? If the reaction is, well, I don't know, somebody told me it was a good idea, and they're out.
Have people actually met with you and said that?
Oh, you see people back away when you test their mettle, and then you say, you know, why are you doing it? If they say, I want to make money, or I want to make you money, the clever ones go, hey, I want to make you money. That's not enough. They have to have a passion for what they're doing. It's just got to be like, because the company I was working for did it all wrong, and this is such a great vision, and it has to happen, and this is what I've dedicated my life to, and this is all I'm going to do. And it's gonna work, and nobody's going to stop it. Think about Elon Musk. Elon goes, we're going to Mars. And then 95% of the population thinks, he's crazy. The other 5% of the people go, how would we get to Mars?
When you look at previous downturns, companies like Google, eBay, they came up in part as a result of the downturn. The last downturn helped give birth to the Airbnbs and the Ubers of the world. What do you think this next one? Here's what happens. When there's a downturn or a crisis, a lot of people lose their jobs. It is tragic. And then some of the people who lose their jobs say, I'm going to start something. There's a better way.
There's a better way. I worked for this company for 10 years, and I'm looking and I'm saying, they were going in the wrong direction anyway, and I've got a better way. And then they come to venture capitalists like Draper Associates, and they say, hey, I've got an idea, and this is what I'm thinking of doing. And if I get excited about it, then we fund them.
Where do you see the next round of big ideas? What industry are you focusing on right now?
I look back at all the companies that have been very successful for me, and those are Skype and Hotmail and Tesla. And those companies all took on industries where customers were getting really bad service at really high prices.
So where do you see that? High cost, bad service.
Okay, government. That's where we get the worst service for the highest cost.
So how would one change that?
You can actually run a much more fair and efficient and positive government if you think about all the new technologies that have happened and apply those to government. I could easily see using blockchain where you need fairness. I also have been exploring this idea of having a basic income for everybody. Everybody, you, me, everybody. Everybody gets $15,000 a year from the taxpayers. And then the next $15,000 they earn free of charge. And then after that, they pay some amount of tax, and then it goes from there. And what that does is it eliminates all the problems that we have around welfare and around Social Security and around unemployment and even minimum wage, all those problems pretty much go away. Because
$30,000 a year?
well, it might be 40, 50, I don't know what the number is, but it is some amount where everybody's on the same platform so that you're not tainted if you're getting welfare, because everybody's getting it. And you don't feel like you can't go work because you might lose your welfare, because you're encouraged to work. You're very happy when Bill Gates is making a lot of money, because then there's more money that can go into this tax base that can help raise that minimum.
So the higher
level.
the taxes go, and you're in this sort of vision of the future,
Yeah,
if the tax revenue base goes up, then everybody makes a little more in their
Sure.
paycheck from the government
Right.
in this
And-
vision.
And everybody's incentive is to improve GDP. People who work for government should not be, their increases in pay should not be tied to CPI, but should be tied to GDP growth.
Just
Everybody
kind of
be
like the same
thinking
idea as
in
a
a different
CEO
way.
with their shareholder tied. I want to talk to you a little bit about the current state of investing, the current state of the tech space. Do you feel like there's a bubble?
No, I don't. And as long as you guys are still asking me if there's a bubble, there's no bubble. We got a long way to go.
How much
It's
longer?
come off, the market's come off, and I've noticed fewer angels and less enthusiasm from angels, and fewer entrepreneurs, but those entrepreneurs are the really great, dedicated entrepreneurs.
Why do you think there has been this decline in funding, especially from the angels?
We do have a liquidity problem. We have a serious liquidity problem, because in order to take a company public and make it a successful public offering, you really have to be in the $10 billion market size company. There are very few of those. There are many, many more that are in the $100 million to $10 billion market range. And those companies have no liquidity.
I think you said recently you didn't think companies should pursue that IPO. That they should essentially not contemplate that. Instead, stay private.
Stay private because you can run your business more flexibly. But in order to stay private, you need some sort of liquidity. And there are these new technologies that are really awesome potentially for liquidity. And those are e-shares, electronic shares. Cap share and e-shares work well on those. Bitcoin and the blockchain are going to make it so that you could potentially have a very liquid market where people can easily buy and sell and trade.
So you're ultimately saying
you don't need a transfer agent, you don't need the lawyer, you don't need the accountant. You can just make the trade, and it will simplify the system and the ability for companies to stay private but be tradable.
But what you're saying is you want a place for anyone to go, no matter how much money they have, where they can go and trade in the private company stock, so that one could own an Uber or a Snapchat today without having to be a specialized venture capitalist or a hedge fund that has special access to it.
I'm saying, sure, that would be great. But our government is trying to protect anyone from doing that. And the protections are killing people.
Have you had companies that you've seeded that have gone out of business because of that?
Create an easier way for people to trade shares in private companies. And maybe it's just private companies that get to be worth $100 million.
Have you had companies that you've seeded that have gone out of business as a result of that?
Yes, they've died on the vine because they couldn't go public. Well, it was too expensive, and they were trying to go public, and they were wasting $5 million a year. And then the public markets turned south, and then they were stuck. And it happened to 9 of our portfolio companies.
9?
During the period of, and these were companies that were doing great.
How is artificial intelligence going to change all the things that we do?
Well, somebody asked me the greatest 2 questions. One was, when are there going to be self-driving cars out on the road? Okay, that was the first one. And I said, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, I think we'll have quite a few of them out there.
2 or 3 years from now?
Yeah. Then the second question was, when are they not going to allow people to drive cars?
Which is a great question. So
So
what do you
suddenly,
think?
the artificial intelligence does a better job, a better safety record, gets there on time faster, everything works better when you operate through this artificial intelligence system.
So what will that ultimately mean?
I think self-driving cars are the first opportunity. I think robots are coming too. I think that's going to be a very exciting thing.
Should
to
people
have-
with jobs, especially in service, be worried that those jobs won't be here
See,
because
that's
of
where
the
I
robots?
that's where I think the basic income is really going to be important. We're more familiar with this kind of changeover in the Silicon Valley than they are in a lot of the rest of the country and the rest of the world, where people are in startups and they fail and then they go, okay, now what am I going to do?
You're talking about a highly educated group who has lots of opportunities. Whether they're the opportunities they want is up to question, but there are a lot of opportunities versus part of the labor force that might not necessarily have, beyond a high school education or even a college degree, might not have the skill set for the jobs that are available. How do you retrain that part of the workforce?
See, it's interesting. Even in your speech, you're talking about a static education system where you have a static degree and a I actually believe that education has to be a dynamic thing. At Draper University, we've decided that we really want to change the way education works. I created a school that focused on turning ordinary people with a special spark into great entrepreneurs. Starting this year in September, we have a master's program. We start them with what I call hero training, where they go through the paces, but by the end of it, they will be very comfortable on their feet. They'll fail and fail again until they succeed. They'll end up being a part of one of two tracks. One of the tracks will be, okay, I've been through your program and I'm going to start my business now. The other track will be, okay, I've been through your program, I want to start my business later, but I need to get a job now. The one track, when they go off and start a business, is going to have a business plan competition that these students are going to be allowed to participate in that I'm putting $1 million behind. The other track, to go get a job, we can place them in one of 600 companies. What we've decided is that we're changing all of education in all ways. We're getting rid of the board scores and the grades as a way of getting in. We're thinking more, where's the spark in this person? To get into Draper University, you have to have an X factor. You have to have something that's a little bit special. You have to have a passion for one thing, or a passion to see the entire world. I just decided I had to start a new school where the accreditors would normally put me into a box, and I'd have to be like all the other schools. But I felt like, no, that doesn't make any sense. I want a school that breaks all of those standards and changes the way people learn. And we've learned a couple of really interesting things. One is team-based learning is everything. I mean, after all, we all work in teams once we get out, right? But when we're in the school, we all are working toward that A.
Yeah.
And we work toward that A, and the A means, good job. You didn't make any mistakes. And I think, well, wait a second. We want our students to make mistakes. We want our students to go out and fly a kite during a thunderstorm so that they
How many times has that happened at Draper?
So they learn electricity, and we want them to feed moldy bread to the poor people in the hospitals so that they get better. Yeah, I mean, those were mistakes, right? Penicillin, electricity, Reese's peanut butter cups. They were all mistakes. And so we want mistakes to happen. I think people need to think in terms of change because change is happening faster and faster and faster. We all have to adapt faster and faster and faster. Our education system should be a changing, moving thing so that people get it and then they kind of get the basics and then they start to move and they go, okay, that's happened, now this could happen. And so that at Draper University we say we don't teach history, we teach future. And so we get people thinking and anticipating what might be the next thing that happens.